Broncos' 5-game winning streak comes to a halt in Houston. 22-17, the Texans win it. A interception by Russell Wilson at the end of the game in the end zone was the final nail in the coffin for Denver's comeback attempt. They trailed by 10-plus points at some stages of this game, and ultimately Houston's offense and defense were both equally too much to overcome, right? It was all Houston's offense in the first half, and in the second half, it was the takeaways for Houston's defense. Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions after completing 15 of 26 passes for 186 yards and 1 incredible touchdown to Courtland Sutton. Now, I am not going to overly panic after this loss. Denver now sits at 6-6 on the outside looking in. This does not help their playoff chances, without a doubt. It's not only just a loss in general, it's a loss in the AFC, which is a tiebreaker, and it's a head-to-head loss against Houston. So if these two teams finish with both 9 or 10 wins or something like that, the Texans are going to have the tiebreaker. But a lot of football left. The Broncos played a tough team on the road, and they went down pretty much to the final second of the game. So a lot to work on offensively for Denver, but who do you blame for the loss today? Before I really get into the nuts and the bolts of this post-game show, I want to know from all of you right now, who do you blame for this loss, right? Who do you walk away thinking that guy ultimately cost us the game? For me, I think you got to go with Russell Wilson. 3 very costly turnovers at inopportune times, especially the final interception. Russ simply looked a little bit like the quarterback we have seen the last few weeks, minus the interceptions, and that's a big factor. But it just looked like Russ was a game manager that was just one bad game away from having an extreme meltdown. And we saw that. When you look at Denver's offense, pitiful. Pitiful. 282 yards, 164 yards through the air, 118 on the ground, 3 interceptions, and did not even possess the ball for half of the game. Denver's offense, by all accounts, was a failure. I mean, there's been worse games. Great touchdown pass to Courtland Sutton. But outside of that, Russell Wilson missed a couple of early deep throws to Courtland Sutton in the first half of the game. The ground game was not producing big chunks of yardage. And, I mean, let's just call it what it is. If Samaje Perine does not get away with that forward progress call, or does not get a lucky break from that, this game is a blowout, right? Unfortunately for Denver, or fortunately for Denver, I should say, there's still a lot of football to be played. And they've got to find a way to get guys like Jerry Jeudy more involved. I mean, Jerry Jeudy was wide open on 1 4th down play for what would have been a walk-in touchdown. But Jeudy is not a bad player. Like, he is talented. Unfortunately, he does not see the football enough. Javonte Williams had 13 carries for 46 yards, had a crucial conversion on the final drive, long as 16, but the offense from the start to the finish was just, it looked like someone learning to drive stick for the first time, where it's like, okay, are we going? Okay, thank you. I just put my head in the backrest right there. Like, it never felt like they were really in a flow by any account. So, plenty to work on, and this was my fear. And some of you were very upset with me, and I don't care, for saying that, what's the offense going to look like if Denver does not have 4 or 5 takeaways in the game? Well, we just saw it, and it was 17 points, and it was pulling teeth for those 17 points. Now, we're going to talk about the defense in just a moment, but our sponsor for today's show is Prize Picks. Make sure you check out Prize Picks right now and select 2 to 6 player stat projections, more or less on those, and the more player stat projections you add, well, the bigger the winnings you could make. So, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100. We can check out my selections for Sunday Night Football just as an example of what it looks like, and you can ride with me or you can fade me. But I'm taking the less on Jordan Love's passing yards, the more on Patrick Mahomes's, and then I'm going to go less on both wide receivers. Neither receiver is all that great in my eyes, and these are 2 good defenses. So those are my selections for Sunday Night Football. Make sure you check it out, prizepicks.com/CLNS, code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100. The link for that is in the comments and description of today's video. Why did Denver lose? They didn't get a takeaway. Like that, I think, is the ultimate difference maker here. Is Denver's offense was fueled by all 16 of the takeaways amid the 5-game winning streak because some of those were very close wins, and they needed every single takeaway to keep themselves in the game, like in Buffalo and Minnesota, and in the Kansas City game and the Cleveland game, it was to distance themselves, right? They used takeaways to win in two different styles. Unfortunately, Houston was smart and cautious with the football. They did a good job of protecting it. C.J. Stroud did not turn it over. He had that strip sack, but ultimately Houston jumped on the ball. And I don't really understand how that happened because P.J. Locke came out of the pile with the football, but whatever. And that was the difference maker. There's also one other difference maker. I have a lot of difference makers. How about Nico freaking Collins? Like, this unfortunately reeked of September Vance Joseph. Nico Collins has 9 grabs for 191 yards and 1 touchdown. Maybe you put Pat Surtain on him for the rest of the game. At some point, we have to stop blaming coaches and blame players for failing to execute. But also, let's put players in positions to succeed. And when Tate Dell went down with a broken leg, unfortunately, all eyes went on Nico Collins. And Patrick Surtain, he had left the game earlier with a knee injury, but you should have had him all over Nico Collins for the entirety of the second half and not messing around with Fabian Moreau at times. Dameon Pierce, he had 15 carries for 41 yards. Denver's run defense is getting better and better and better by the week. So if you're looking for a silver lining defensively, I know the broadcast was like, the defense is keeping this game or keeping the offense in this game at the half. How about the defense giving up like 289 rushing yards? 264. How about the defense giving up nearly 200 passing yards in the first half alone? So there's blood on everyone's hands after this loss. But I think the ultimate takeaway here is Russell Wilson's 3 interceptions. You're just not going to win a lot of games that way. I mean, Denver's been on the other side of this very often. They're the team usually winning 22-17 because they get the 3 interceptions and they eke out a bit of a close-ish win. For Denver, they got a taste of their own medicine in this loss. But that's going to do it for us on our post-game show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We're going to keep you guys informed and entertained. Okay? So if you're looking for a daily Broncos YouTube channel, this is the channel to go to. We're going to keep you guys up to speed on everything, including injury news. And fortunately, there's not a whole lot of injury news to come out of this game for Denver. Chris Manhertz, he left the game briefly early on, but outside of that, Denver stayed relatively healthy in this game. Quinn Miners briefly exited the game as well. But injury-wise, Denver escapes with a somewhat clean bill of health. As far as clean bill of health go in Week 13, no one's going to be all that healthy. But the final score, 22-17. Denver goes to 6-6. They are not out of the playoff race, but this is like a triple loss. Like, you just lose altogether. A loss in the AFC and a head-to-head loss against the Houston Texans, which might come back to bite you later on in the year.